Hello, Lorcan. The Surfer, terrific, absolutely terrific. Really enjoyed it. So you have a film where a gang of surfers are extremely protective of their cove. So how exactly did you find a cove to film without a gang of overprotective surfers?
Um, yeah, well, we needed a location really that would match the staging of the script as it was written. So when you were making the film in Australia, we kind of settled on Western Australia, which is still gigantic. It's basically a third of Australia. And we scouted up and down the coast, sort of went north of Perth and then went back to Perth and then went south of Perth. And we found this place called Yallingup, this little town in the Margaret River area, which has incredible beach, beautiful turquoise water, golden sand, and also had these kind of expensive looking houses perched up in between the trees in the hilltop, um, and a car park that was situated right above the beach with a nice vista down and room to shoot all the elements that we needed to shoot. So the location was pretty much perfect, and the surfers were actually very nice. I was hoping to encounter a little bit of localism down there, but um, we actually had like one of the world's top surfers lives there. It's called Taj Burrows, and Nick actually stayed in his house while we were filming, and I think that helped us with the local surfers there. That that gave us a little bit of kudos, and a lot of them ended up being in the local surfers are in the film,
All right.
and helped us because we are quite in a quite remote place. So I mean, even the owner of the local hotel is in the movie, and yeah.
So Nicolas Cage obviously is the star, but he also produces. So can you tell me about your first meeting with him and how you pitched it? Because I can imagine he's quite an intimidating sort of force of nature to deal with.
Not really. I mean, didn't really have to pitch it to him. He read us. So like we sent him the scripts, and first thing he loved was the title, Surfer. He thought it was intriguing. He grew up in California. He kind of understands surf community, and then he had seen my film Vivarium, so he was like, "Oh, so you're the guy who made Vivarium? Okay, cool. I'll read this." And then he went and watched another one of my films, Nocebo, and he liked that. And then we jumped on a call, and it wasn't that I had to pitch it to him. Really, it was just like we just talked about it, and he really liked the material. He thought there was something kind of Kafkaesque about it. And unlike anything he'd read, he actually thought like if he was to write a short story, he'd love it to be as good as Tom had written this screenplay. So we just chatted, and it turned out we have very similar tastes in films and similar sense of humor. And I told him about how I was thinking of making the film, and he completely agreed. And he jumped on board, and then we were shooting in about I don't know about 4 months from then.
So it's a beautiful location and it's really stunningly photographed. But I understand there were things like there were great white sharks offshore. Nicolas Cage was bitten by a snake, I understand. There was a scene with him and Julia McMahon, one of their first scenes where they're both kind of bitten to pieces by ants and bugs and midges and whatnot. And then, of course, there's the hot weather. So it doesn't seem to have been the most easiest of shoots. Would that be right?
Yeah, it's tricky because everything was exterior, but I actually really enjoy that because you have to run with what you're given and make the most out of it. And yeah, like Nick had to do a little bit of training at the beginning just to kind of get back used to paddling on the board and popping up and all of that kind of thing. So we did some lessons, and there were concerns about the amount of sharks because people had been eaten around that area like about 2 months before, and then even when we were filming, there was a shark attack. Um, and the only way to do that though is not think about it really because you just can't concentrate if you're just thinking about what is in the dark water beneath you. Um, so he did those lessons, and he got up on the board and he was surfing within a couple of hours, which is pretty amazing. And yeah, the flies really were great, to be honest. Like Nick's character had a lot of sweat put on him because it was hot, but it wasn't as hot as it looks in the film. Um, so we used like glycerin sweat on his forehead and his neck and everything, which the flies absolutely love. And in that scene where he's him and Julian are getting very kind of close, and Julian's putting his hands on Nick's face, and he's offering him food and tempting him. Um, there was an outbreak of flying ants, which are kind of crawling around both of them. But, we couldn't have asked for better. And
Who said filming is glamorous?
yeah, exactly. And yeah, Nick did get bitten by a snake. We were filming the snake scene, where he's hiding from the Bay Boys who are going around with these burning torches, and we're shooting at night in the scrub off the car park, and we had this Woma python, which looks like a tiger snake. It's sort of this good double for a venomous snake, but it was non-venomous. And we had a animal handler behind him, and the problem is the snake was just moving very slowly because it was cool at night, and snakes are less active when it's cold. So we were asking the snake wrangler, is there anything we can do to make it a little bit more active? And Nick wanted it to be a little bit more active. I wanted to be more active. The cinematographer did too. And so Nick was fine with holding the snake. He's comfortable with reptiles, and he put it down, and she said, "Yeah, well, if you tickle his tail." And he goes, "Okay." And he tickled his tail, and the snake was like, bam, bit his hand, drew blood, and we were like, "What the hell?" And she goes, "Oh yeah, sometimes he'll do that if you tickle his tail."
Now you tell us.
You might have wanted to let us know first. Um, but yeah, it was fine. It was he just had to, he was actually a little bit worried about bacterial infections and stuff like that from the snake bite, but he was okay.
So while we're talking about animals, obviously we've got to talk about that line, "Eat the rat,"
Yeah.
which is a great line, and it seems a very Nick Cage kind of line. Was it him that came up with it, or was that a scripted line?
No, so the rat was in the script, obviously. And we had this rat that with a mechanical part that would bite his hand. And we had this soft, bouncy rat for when he's smacking against the side of the car. And then there's a scene that was written in the script where he picks up the rat and he's about to eat it, and a passerby gives him a look. And when we were filming that, um, Nick had already, we were shooting mostly chronologically, so like he felt his character would keep this rat because it was like a prize that he'd found. So he wanted to keep it in his pocket after picking it up. And I know like the art department and everything wanted the rat back to keep it in a box, because we only had one. He was like, no, no, I need to keep it. I need to keep it. And he wasn't really sure what he wanted to do with it yet, but he knew that his character would keep it. And I think it was the next day he told me this idea he'd been formulating, which was related to Sabrina, the movie, the Humphrey Bogart um, film, where Humphrey Bogart takes an olive from a martini glass and shoves it in his uncle's mouth and says, "Eat it." And he wanted, as a ode to Billy Wilder, to take this rat and shove it in a character's mouth later on in the film and say, "Eat it." So yeah, eat it, eat the rat. And that became, yeah, so like he suggested that to me, and I thought, yeah, sounds great. It could be it could be brilliant. I mean, if it works, it works. If it doesn't, we can cut it from the film. So we did a quick rehearsal on the ground with Alexander Bertrand, the actor, and to make sure he wasn't going to choke or anything. And then when we were shooting the scene, he did it, and it worked, and it was funny, and it was cathartic, and it tied it all together. So yeah.
And then finally, just to sort of go to the very beginning of the whole story, it was inspired, I gather, by Thomas Martin, who's written the screenplay.
Mhm.
Do you know what that instance actually was?
And there was a couple of things. So he saw some surfers in Sydney. They'd finished surfing, they were getting into suits, like as in like smart suits, ties, jackets. And he thought, all right, they must be like he presumed one was a lawyer or a dentist or something like that. And then they beat the shit out of each other on the sand on the beach, and it kind of shocked him and traumatized him a little bit. And he thought, like, who are these guys? Um, you know, what is this violence about? And then he came across this story of Lanuda Bay in California, where there's these it's like a crescent shaped beach with these modernist houses perched up on the hilltop. And it's very exclusive, very expensive, and they're all owned by hedge fund managers and CEOs. And um, if you try and go down and surf on their beach, they will attack you and beat the shit out of you. So um, he thought there was something interesting there in terms of like these guys obviously had public lives that were very where they had to come across as being very normal and deal with the public and have clients and everything. But down on their beach, they became much more animalistic and tribal and controlling over that section of beach and the waves there, and that there was something interesting about that. And I think that plus a lot of surf noir and also Robert Drew's short stories. He's an Australian writer, and John Cheever's short story The Swimmer were all kind of inspirations in the writing.
That's great. Thank you for your time, Lorcan. It's a terrific film. I really, really enjoyed it. So
Oh, thanks.
thank you so much for talking to us. Thank you.
Yeah, no worries. All right.